Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is pet. And this verb was another one suggested by Louise. Thank you so much for that suggestion. Now let's take a moment to look at some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The first and most common way you are likely to encounter this verb is to describe the action of patting or stroking an animal, doing it in a rather loving way. Again, most people think of this definition when they encounter this verb, and this can be done to a number of different domesticated or tamed animals. A second way the verb pet sometimes gets used can mean to treat someone with affection or favoritism. And then a third way you might encounter the verb pet used is to refer to human beings that are caressing and touching one another. So kind of doing that in an amorous or loving way. For now, you should know that pet is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb and the past tense form, we're going to have a spelling change. And the reason for that is we have a verb that ends with a consonant, vowel, consonant pattern. And so anytime we're adding a suffix that starts with a vowel letter, like I or E, we need to double our ending consonant. So I'm going to spell the progressive form of this verb, P-E-T-T-I-N-G. Okay, that makes petting. The past tense and participle forms are going to have that double T, right, two T's there, before we add our ed suffix. Now our base verb, pet, ends with a T sound. This means when I add the ed ending, I'm going to make an id sound, and I'm going to add an extra syllable to the verb. It should sound like this: petted, petted. Okay. Might be happy to know no additional phrasal verbs for us to study, so we can move on to a little bit of verb tense practice. And I think it's been a little while since we've reviewed how to make WH questions in the present progressive. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and then we'll do some examples with our verb of the day. First, let's talk a little bit about the present progressive. Again, some teachers or textbooks will call this the present continuous. They mean exactly the same thing. I like using this present progressive. The two P's can help me remember I need two parts to my verb. So I'm going to use a present form of be, and I'm going to use a verb that ends in ing. That's why I tend to use that name for the verb tense. Okay. And let's talk a little bit about WH questions. In most of our videos, we practice making yes or no questions. These WH questions cannot be answered with the words yes or no. We need to provide something more with them. So that's another name I've used in my classes with students. We call them more information types of questions. So with these types of questions, we want to start with a question word, and then you can notice our pattern, right? We're going to use a form of be, and we want to use a form that matches our subject, right? So we're going to use the be verb are, A-R-E, with the subjects you, we, and they. We'll use is with the subjects he, she, and it. Okay, so question word, be, subject, and then we're going to have a verb that ends in ing. Okay. Now, if you'd like, you can pause the screen here and practice making a few different examples. I've set this up so we could do a few different types of questions, right? I could do when are you studying? Where are you studying? What are you studying? Why are you studying, right? All of those work. You can practice that if it interests you. But if you're ready for a few more examples, we're going to move on to some example questions with our verb of the day. Okay. The first type of question we're going to practice today is a question about a place or a location. To do this, you want to use the question word where, W-H-E-R-E, where. Okay, so if you hear that maybe your daughter is petting a cat, right? You might say, wait, where is she petting it, right? Sometimes when children are little, they might not know what spots or which places on an animal are better to touch or pat in a more gentle way. Okay. Another question word we use is how. This can tell us the manner in which an action is being done. So an example of this. How are they petting the dog, right? Maybe someone thought a dog was behind a fence, right? We want to know in what way are they able to touch and pat the dog. Okay. Another question word we use is WHY. Why? This is a question for a reason, to understand the reason behind someone doing a particular action. I'm going to do an example here. The question I have is, why are you petting it while in a Zoom meeting? So I was reading an advice column this week where somebody was asking a question about petting their animals while working from home and on during video meetings. And they were wondering kind of how professional does that look? And someone kind of wanted to know, why do you feel the need to do that when you're at work, right? So here, many times when we ask that question, why, our answer or our response is going to include the word because. Really common to hear why and because joined together. Another type of question we might ask is about a thing. This can be called a determiner, right? We can use the question word what, W-H-A-T. What is he petting, right? Maybe we can't tell what kind of animal something is. Now, with these first four questions, what I want you to notice is that our pattern follows what we just discussed, right? So we can see a question word, you can see a form of be, a subject, and then you see our verb of the day with that double T and the ing ending. There are a couple questions that structure is different than our normal pattern. The question word which, W-H-I-C-H, is one of those that's just a little bit different. When we use which, we're generally asking someone to make a choice between two or more options. Okay? So after the question word which, you're going to see a noun, right? Because we're asking someone to choose from those things. Okay? An example of this. Which horse are they petting? So there you still see be, you still see a subject, and you see the ing form the verb. The last type of question we ask can be about the person that is responsible for doing an action. We use the question word who, W-H-O, with when we want to know the person that is responsible for a particular action. Now, the question word who actually has two purposes or two functions. It's a question word, and it's also the subject. So you're not going to see another subject here. You might see a question like, who is petting the rabbit? Okay. So here we don't have a he, she, it there because who is both question word and subject. Now let's spend a moment looking at some words that are related to our verb pet. And the first word we're going to talk about today is the noun form of the word. When many people use the noun pet, they're talking about a domestic or a tamed animal that someone keeps. Could be inside their home, might be outside, but it's being kept for companionship, for pleasure, for fun. An example of this might be, have you ever had any pets? Right? This could be things like fish, birds, cats, dogs. Those are some common ones, but they can be other animals. If you've had a pet, I really would love for you to share in the comments section here. Now, a second way the noun pet gets used is to refer to a person that is being treated with special favor. Many times others think that person is unfairly being treated better than others. So an example of how you might hear this used: he was the teacher's pet last semester, right? So here might mean like he never got in trouble, or he got the best assignments, or he got to answer the questions first, right? Whatever others might feel is unfair treatment. Now, I also want to point out that the word pet, P-E-T, so again, same spelling, same pronunciation, can also be used as an adjective. One way to use that word as an adjective is to describe something that one is devoting additional attention or special attention to, or maybe just something they feel very strongly about. An example of this might be, making videos about verbs has been my pet project for nearly 4 years. Right? So this is something I started doing to help a few students, but now I do devote a couple hours each week to doing this, thinking about verbs, making some notes, and making the videos, because many people have shared they find it helpful, they find it interesting, and I love helping people who are learning English. Now, a second way the adjective pet can be used is just really to refer to expressing some kind of fondness, endearment. With this, you might think of love. So an example of this adjective in a sentence might be, does your spouse have any pet names for you? Right? So this would be something other than your given name, but they're using it in a sort of a loving way to kind of call you or get your attention with that particular name. Now, there's one more thing for us to discuss today. I thought some of you might encounter PET as an acronym. So what I want you to notice for my notes here is that the letters P-E-T and my last bullet point here are all capitalized. And here they're capitalized because they stand for a positron emission tomography. Right? Ooh, a lot of words there. So much easier to say PET. But this is a type of medical imaging that uses radioactive substances. So you might hear a doctor or a nurse explain that someone, or maybe you yourself, needs a PET scan. Okay, and I've included a picture in the bottom of the screen what that might look like, and you can see different parts of it labeled, but let's also read an example sentence to help us understand it just a little bit better. It says, PET scans can detect early signs of cancer, heart disease, and brain conditions. Right? So it can be a really useful medical procedure, particularly when someone is showing symptoms of a particular illness, and it can help us diagnose those kinds of problems. But it's my hope you'll never need to know that, but maybe you'll be a little better prepared in case you hear that used in a medical setting. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.